The chair recognizes the honourable member for Kalani.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I stand on behalf of that great constituency in the West, Kalani. And as I walked about continuously meeting and greeting my constituents and campaigning, I am reassured that they will send me back to this place. And I look forward to that. Madam Speaker, I want to say to the member of Central and South Eleuthera responsible for works, we need some serious road paving in Bohemia West. The road is now a disaster. And we also need road paving, if not minimal patching, in Sea Beach Estate, as we have a series of craters within that area that needs to be repaired. But, Madam Speaker, I rise today on behalf of the Kalani constituency to contribute to the debate on climate change and carbon market initiative, Amendment Bill 2026, and the Climate Change and Environmental Advisory Unit Bill 2026. Climate change is one of the greatest challenges of our time. It is one of the most important issues for our country. And as a coastal nation with a far-flung, low-lying chain of islands, we are especially vulnerable. Continued increases in temperatures and the melting of polar glaciers may lead to sea level rises and pH changes that could wipe out much of the land mass of places such as ours. The pH changes in our waters can wipe out our conch stock, our fish stock, and our marine resources, thus markedly affecting our economy. We all must take the threat seriously. We must all do our part to limit the warming of our planet due to human activity. The recent onslaught of hurricanes, including superstorms such as Hurricane Dorian, dramatized for Bahamians the severe and devastating effects of warming our planet. This includes more powerful storms and weather events, including deadly floods, fires, and droughts around the world. By example, over the past 2 weeks, Australia have experienced record temperatures close to 122 degrees Fahrenheit, prolonged heat waves, and fires. And over the past several days, bitter cold has covered much of the United States. And I just read a weather report that even Freeport may experience snow this weekend. We have witnessed in our region the increased occurrence of Category 5 storms in recent years. And these storms were once rare. They now happen regularly, with storms reaching that ferocity in record time. Such major and destructive storms, rising sea levels, coastal erosion, the dying of coral reefs, and other examples demonstrate the particular threat of climate change to small island nations and archipelagos such as ours. Climate change, Madam Speaker, is real. It is caused by human actions and continues because of human inaction. As small as we may be, we too contribute to climate change by our actions and, in some instances, our inactions. When we came to office, Madam Speaker, we were plagued by multiple dump fires, sometimes twice per year. And these fires emitted carbon dioxide, thus resulting in contributing to climate change, methane, gas, and other elements that contribute to climate change and changing the ozone layers that surround us. The fires that were experienced at the dump site affected the livelihood, especially of those residents in the immediate vicinity, breathing and other respiratory problems. It could have possibly affected our economy because Bahama at that time was being developed and was challenged as the guests were complaining of the amount of smoke that they were experiencing within the Bahama facility. And therefore, there was a threat to the survival or development of Bahama and our economy. Our government put that as a priority and tackled and resolved the fire. So there's no longer dump fire, and there's no longer that contribution to the destruction of the ozone layer or that contribution to the climate change that we see today. I urge the government that similar fires occur in family islands on their dump site, and as small as we may be, they too contribute to the climate change and destruction of ozone layer. And therefore, just as we had stopped the dump fires and repaired the dumps here in New Providence, the same should be done in the family islands. Then, Madam Speaker, all of these contribute to the destructive changes that we see with storms today, Category 5. I had great experience with Category 5, the Dorian, and there were lots of complaints by the residents of Abaco that there were lots of stealing, pilferage occurring in their community after the storm. My officials were reporting saying that was not true. And I want the Minister of Health to listen to this carefully. My officials were saying that was not true. The residents continued to complain that they were bombarded by theft and robbery within their community. And again, the officials reported that it was not true. I took it upon myself, in following the teaching of Abraham Lincoln, to go and see and visit the facilities in the area and experience it for myself. Madam Speaker, I was shocked. The residents were correct. The officials was giving the wrong information. And I am sad to report that a lot of the theft was done by officials. Residents had them on tape, video recording, etc. Many of the contents and residents furnishing, generators, etc., were placed on boats and vessels and sent back here to New Providence. So I am saying to the Minister of Health, I would advise you to talk with regularity with the patients. Talk to the staff, the groundmen. because you said that you were unaware of the overtime fiasco that's occurring at the health sector. If you had spoken, just like me, with the patients, the staff, the doctors, the nurses, the ancillary staff, then you probably would have gotten a different story. That's my only advice to you. Then flooding, Madam Speaker, is also a problem. Again, resulting from climate change or exacerbated by climate change. But we contribute to it. Why? Because we continuously fill in the wetlands. The wetlands help to absorb the carbon dioxide, help to absorb, protecting our ozone layer and minimizing or decreasing the effects of carbon change. I ask that we protect our wetlands. That's a serious issue, especially in the West, in my constituency, Killarney. And conserve and protect our forest lands, our trees, for they too serve a function, and we must do our part. I ask the government to introduce a drainage clearing program so that individuals would know with regularity as to when drains in the east, the west, north, and south would be tackled. It should be on a schedule, be it every 3 months, that is published so that there can be no complaint that my drains were not done. The drains are identified, logged, cataloged, a manager for the east, a manager for the west, a manager for the south. The manager meets with that team with regularity and ensure that all the drains are done right. Thank you, Minister.
The chair recognizes the honourable member.
Just for a point of information, I wanted to add to that. We have a young Bahamian who asked, and we're running the pilot program now, has went further than that. So this young 39-year-old Bahamian and her team has created a device that we have testing in the drains in areas that flood in New Providence that will alert the ministry when the water reaches a certain point or when the sludge reaches a certain point and awares the ministry that it needs to be cleaned. So what I want to make that point because we have a young Bahamian who's created this out of nothing. She didn't buy the device. She had it made right here in the Bahamas, so I just wanted to make that point that we're already making headway with that, but this is to show that we have young people in this country that can make inroads in helping us and how we make innovation and technology a part of running our ministries.
Stop that clock. Madam Speaker, I'm happy to hear that. That is very progressive of you, Minister, and I'm happy to hear that. I would only advise that if you can publish it with regularity so that individuals can know. You can do the best things possible, but if no one knows, it's not being done. Yeah, okay. While we may have our policy and political disagreements, we share common purpose and common cause as political parties to protect and to preserve our Commonwealth. And let it not be said that a government had done nothing. That's impossible. That's impossible. All governments want the best for their people. Our approach may be different, but we all seek the same results. We must work collectively while one side is in government and the other is in opposition to pursue climate and environmentally friendly policies that are best for the Bahamas. Again, protecting our wetland, conserving our hills, our trees, and our forest land. It is necessary to note that as a small, non-industrialized nation, The Bahamas is not a major carbon emitter. This solution to the climate problem lies in needed changes to the global economy and how the world produces energy. Despite the continued warming of our planet, some progress is being made. There is a global shift to electric vehicles. Solar and wind power are becoming increasing contributors to national energy grids. Unfortunately, it is necessary to transition away from the use of fossil fuels to renewable forms of energy and other forms that release less carbon dioxide as part of the global effort to reduce the effects of climate change. The biggest changes must come from the biggest countries that are the biggest emitters. Small countries, such as the Bahamas, suffer the consequences of the actions of the large industrial countries. They often say they will help us in the climate fight, but such assistance is slow, if it ever comes at all. And while we welcome real help, major countries and various international bodies are good at making pledges to help small island states, to build resilience, and to combat climate change. But they largely and continually fail to deliver on these big promises. I advise the Prime Minister and the Minister for the Environment to continue to work with CARICOM and other partners to press the international community for specific funds and assistance in the areas of renewable energy and climate adaptation, mitigation, and resilience. We need those funds and funding mechanisms in order to pay for adaptation and mitigation measures. We cannot fight climate change alone. I supported the government's initial climate change legislation earlier in this term. I support the current bills before us. The Climate Change and Carbon Market Initiatives Amendment Bill 2026 seek to amend the Climate Change and Carbon Market Initiative to Act 2A, transfer the responsibility for administering the reporting obligations to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, under this Act, from the Minister of the Environment to the Prime Minister. It asks to B, place the obligations on the Director of Climate Change and Environmental Advisory Unit to assist the Prime Minister in domestic mitigation measures, adaptation plans, and other obligations to the Bahamas under the Paris Agreement. C, asks to transfer the obligations to include any emission reduction resulting from agreements entered into for participation in the carbon market in the Bahamas in the national reporting mechanisms to the UNFCCC, from the Minister of the Environment to the Minister with responsibility for reporting obligations to the UNFCCC. And D, permit the Registrar to submit periodic reports to the Prime Minister instead of to the Minister of the Environment. The Climate Change and Environmental Advisory Unit Bill 2026 seeks to establish the Climate Change and Environmental Advisory Unit. And the objective of this bill are to A, develop and implement the national climate policies and plan. B, develop and submit the national climate reports. C, mobilize climate finances. D, engage in climate negotiations. E, regulate and oversee carbon markets. F, mitigate loss and damage. And G, encourage and implement action for climate empowerment. This bill, Madam Speaker, mandates that a national climate change policy is established and reviewed every 3 years. It mandates the development and implementation of a national adaptation plan to reduce vulnerability to climate change impacts and enhance adaptive capacity and resilience across various sectors. This bill also provides that the Climate Change Unit may coordinate, implement, and have oversight of inter-ministerial committees related to climate change, climate finance, carbon markets, climate policy, sustainable development, special projects, and any other matter the minister deems necessary. This bill, Madam Speaker, further provides for the Climate Change Unit to collaborate with the Ministry of Finance and Disaster Risk Management Authority in their efforts to utilize climate tagging tools. Between the bills passed 3 years ago and these new bills, a significant number of new offices and roles are being created. I advise the Prime Minister to ensure that these offices are properly appointed and funded. In the Bahamas, we are good at passing new laws and setting up agencies on paper. We are not as good at providing the right level of funding and organizational structures to make sure these now new bodies get up and running quickly and efficiently. I say again, we are excellent at passing laws. We are a disaster of enforcement and making it happen. Hence, sometimes it takes many years before action comes from new legislation. Early in his term, the Prime Minister used to travel around the world talking about climate change. Talking about climate change. If the Prime Minister holds climate change measures as a major part of his agenda, he should ensure these pieces of legislation are properly implemented. Thus far, many believe that he has failed miserably in instituting the resilience and adaptation measures required to address climate change. Madam Speaker, while we pass these climate change-related pieces of legislation, there are other things the Bahamas must do in the fight against warming planet. Solarization of the national energy grid is underway. We should put more resources into further expanding these initiatives so that the Bahamas is more energy independent. Also, governments announced incorporation of national gas into the national energy mix designed to replace heavy fuel is the right direction. Natural gas is less polluting than the heavy fuels we currently use. We should work to make the government's fleet of vehicles as fully electric as possible. This would save the government money and set an example that we are serious about our part in a small way to reduce carbon emissions. For this legislation to work, we must also educate our people on what all this means. We might take lessons from Barbados with regards to their more extensive public and school education programs on climate change. Madam Speaker, this government has talked repeatedly about energy reform. So far, this has been a massive failure. Light bills are through the roof because the PLP removed the hedge my government left in place. Pun intended, we are being kept in the dark on BPL and the PLP. The opposition and the Bahamian people have little knowledge of the PLP's full plan as to how BPL may be transformed. What is the PLP and the Prime Minister's plan? Will workers truly be protected? Madam Speaker, I want to ask several questions. Is it true that BPL pension fund is still fully underfunded and the Pike Group are refusing to have individuals transferred over because they do not want to honor the pension or the union agreement, and as such, asking individuals to resign, thus losing all their benefits and they taking them on as new employees. This is wrong and must be addressed. Then, Madam Speaker, all my stuff. Is it true that many of the linemen from BPL were sent to Abaco to clear the lines? They had the material, the staffing, and the manpower. The contract, or BPL, was expected to complete this job by the 9th of February. All accommodations for staffing was paid for, all cars were rented, all foods, lodging, etc. was provided. And just before BPL complete the project, a contract, a no-bid contract for about $1.2 million was issued to Talmac. You can check it out, Prime Minister, you can check it out. You don't have to answer me now, but I would like to get the answer if it's true. A $1.2 million contract, no bid, was issued to Talmac, and the BPL staff were immediately back to New Providence. No warning, nothing known as to why they were transferred back to New Providence. We'd like to have some answers on that question. And if that is true, we would like to know whose head will be rolling in this particular case. $1.2 million that could have been saved by the corporation when completing the line clearing by the linesman was within sight. But just like flash, they were whisked to New Providence. Madam Speaker, many do not understand fancy talks about carbon credits and trading. The government needs to find a way to communicate this proposed development in a way which the common person may understand. That is essential. They must understand. Otherwise, the people will think that the government is mixed up in funny business and trying to take advantage of a lack of understanding in the new global regime. Education and understanding is important. There is already a lot of misunderstanding as to how our natural resources industries work. From that misunderstanding has come much resentment that some are doing well off the commonwealth of our land and waters, while common man and woman getting nothing. Madam Speaker, I support the Climate Change and Carbon Market Initiative Amendment Bill 2026 and the Climate Change and Environmental Advisory Unit Bill 2026. Again, I remind the Minister of Works that Bahama West is in urgent need of road surfacing and Sea Beach Estate. I don't want you to wait until you name a candidate for Kalani and then you rush repairing my roads and make it appear as if she did it. She didn't or he didn't. She or he would not have done it. I, the member for Kalani, cry on behalf of my people for the roads at Bahama West and Sea Beach Estate to be repaired. It will not be used as a political tool to appear as if she or he requested it and had it done. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member.